Hello, today I will speak about the reason about I'm speaking about the reasons behind the voyages of discovery, the voyages of exploration, the or the voyages of discovery, the new voyages, the European expansion. What are some of the reasons? But I will talk about the two revolutions in Europe. A revolution is defined as a drastic change suddenly, which is a change now, while an evolutionary change is like a gradual change over time. But a revolution is a change now, like for instance, industrial revolution, the sexual revolution, like the Russian revolution, and so forth. The two revolutions that occurred in Europe in the like around the 1400s, 1300s to the 1500s, in the like around the 15th and 16th century, were the Renaissance, and then there was a Protestant Reformation. First, there was a Renaissance. What was the Renaissance? The Renaissance was also known as Christian humanism is a, like also known as Christian humanism is a French word meaning rebirth in English. This was a time of great interest in classical scholarship, with interest in art, literature, and science. This led to the discovery of the New World and exploration around the globe, moving away from the polemic system of astronomy to Copernican system, the shrink of the feudal system and growth of commerce innovation, the printing press, mariners' compass, gunpowder in Europe. So, throughout European history or world history for that time, there was a Ptolemaic system of viewing astronomy. It's a mathematical model formulated by an Alexandrian Greek astronomer and mathematician Ptolemy in about 115 AD. So he also took that idea from the ancient Greeks, Romans, and Babylonians and Egyptians, of course. So what was it? This system was that the Earth is the center of the universe or the center of the solar system. That was a null hypothesis, and that is the Earth is stationary, right? Most people say it was Christianity that said this idea. No, it was scientists at that time that the Earth is stationary. When Copernicus and Galileo came about and said no, it's this, and then the church argued no, they were arguing on the basis that in all this time science says this. So please prove that the Earth is the center of the. No, please prove that the sun is the center of like the solar system because Ptolemaic system says this. So what is your basis? So but I'm not there. So the natural expectation of a for ancient society, for instance, was that heavenly bodies, sun, moon, and stars must travel in uniform in motion along the most perfect path possible, circling around the earth, for example. However, the paths of the sun and planets as observed from earth are not circular. Yes, that's true. But at that time, that's what most people thought. Ptolemaic model. So, how is it explained that while it explains so, the Copernican system in astronomy was that the sun is at the center, right, and planets move around it. So Copernicus in the 15th century came with that idea, but he was not the first to came with it, but he was like the first to spread it around a lot. So during that time of Renaissance, there was so much ancient interest in ancient Greco-Roman art, science, and literature, compiling them with Christianity, of course. So what did the most important thing around that time, the science of the Renaissance brought knowledge and skills about geography, astronomy, engineering, celestial navigation, and innovation of seaworthy ships known as caravels that were first invented in Portugal in the 15th century by Prince Henry the Navigator. Prince Henry Navigator is the one who established the School of Navigation. So the Renaissance lasted between the 15th and like the 17th century. So the Renaissance consisted of three components: the science of the Renaissance, the art of the Renaissance, and literature of the Renaissance. All these came about because of a change in the way of thinking and an effort to learn. People began to want to understand the world around them, which motivated them to go explore around the world. So that's the Renaissance. Then secondly, Renaissance caused or led to the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation of the 1500s began in 1517 when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses in Wittenberg. This was not just a spiritual movement. Not just a spiritual movement. It was a cultural, economic, scientific, social, and societal revolution. Understand? There was a correlation between also something there was a correlation between the Protestant Reformation and the scientific revolution, since the Reformation brought new ideas, thoughts, and values, which had a direct impact in the scientific revolution. In all, there is some argue that without the changes in thoughts and values brought by the Reformation, proponents of the strong independent argue modern science would not have developed. How is it so? Because certain attitudes of Protestants led to free thinking. Because around that time, knowledge was so much centered in the state. So there's not so much free thought. But then Protestant Reformation brought about free thinking and study of nature around, as well as reinforcement of scientific methods brought by Protestantism through its presupposition. So this led to new innovations in terms of logistics, communication, and energy, which speed up global exploration. Also, what also Protestants sought to do was to eliminate poverty, while the Catholics were just giving charity. Yes, this is a Christian virtue, of course, this was and still is. However, the ideal of Protestant was that they must eliminate the growing social problem of begging and vagrants through public programs. They did this through lowering taxation, prohibition of begging, but upliftment of craftsmen skills, lowering interest loans to assist needed to finance themselves, and most importantly, education programs to assist beggars or peasants to become sailors, merchants, or any useful member of society. And this speeded up the exploration in the new world and treasure in search of new voyages, speeding up internationalism, international trade, leading to globalization, the setting up of enterprises, financial institutions, and businesses abroad. So this would have been why the philosophy of colonialism embedded in the three C's, which is Christianity, commerce, civilization, kicked out around the 18th, 19th to the 20th century, since these were the expansion of Protestant nations, outperforming the Catholic socially, politically, and economically. So, what were the impact of the Renaissance and the Protestant Reformation? Innovation. We spoke about the science of the Renaissance. The mechanical clock was formulated, was invented like in the 14th century. There was also a printing press, which means also printing press also came out in the 15th century, because what happened, that means more knowledge is able to spread across, because before that time books were written by hand. So the printing press helped a lot to spread knowledge, and also gunpowder and artillery, and also marine campers. Also, what about the idea? Here are also some of the ideas that came about. Mercantilism. This was what was mercantilism? The view that a nation's wealth was reflected in the country's holding of precious metals. In addition, one of the most important pillars of mercantilist thought was the static view of world resources. Economic activity in this setting can be viewed as a zero-sum game in which one country's gain was at the expense of another. Acquisition of precious metal thus became the means for increasing wealth and well-being, and the focus of the emerging European nation-state. In a hostile world, the enhancement of state was critical to the wealth process, and this was another important mercantilist doctrine. So, a strong army, a strong navy, and merchant marine and productive economy were critical to maintaining and increasing the power of nation state. So, The mercantilism ideal lasted between the 1500s and like up until the mid 18th century. Secondly, new wealth. The European rulers, explorers, and merchants sought to gain profit and gain with trade from the east, bring in spices and silk to Europe because the Silk Road had collapsed when the Mughal Empire collapsed. The voyages to the Americas and Africa were about seeking gold and other minerals, since gold was used as a currency or as money around that time. Also, what about political? Also, there was political power. There was some outlook by the Renaissance monarchs as compared to medieval monarchs. The medieval monarchs were too busy securing power in their own lands to set out trading routes and overseas territories, whilst the Renaissance monarch began to reduce the power of nobility in their own kingdoms, right? With fewer internal troubles, they were more willing to look outward and expand their kingdoms by dominating different lands and peoples around the globe. That is a ruler with more territories. There was more political power he had, which is why Portugal and Spain sought to like colonize Africa, and then Spain in the Americas. Then religion, together with the together with the church, the European rulers, merchants, and sailors wanted to spread the gospel to the utmost part of the world to convert indigenous people in America, Africa, Asia, and beyond. Competition. Also, there was so much competition. The European expansion. It was a time of difficulty. There was so much rivalry because even Spain and Portugal were not like friends. It was a battle to find new voyages to the east. The first nations were the Portuguese and the Spanish. When the French, Dutch, and saw the profits made by these nations, then they followed them. Also, by the 1500s onwards, nations such as Spain, Portugal, and France went to spread Catholic form of Christianity, while Holland and Great Britain they spread Protestant Christianity. This is one of the reasons that Christianity is associated with colonialism, because out of all the religions in the world, only Christianity was spread through colonialism, since Catholicism and Protestantism were the main religions of European nations engaged in colonial enterprise in a worldwide scale. How they were driven? They were driven by two philosophies, the three G's and the three C's. I'll talk about them in another video. Three G's is mainly God, gold, and glory, and then three C's: Christianity, commerce, civilization. This is it for now. Please subscribe to this channel, and please bring your comments and tell me how can I improve, whether my voice or anything or my pictures. Thank you for watching this video.